Hello, folks and fans of the HiTech Podcast. I wanted to briefly show just what it takes to make an episode of the HiTech Podcast. I use Camtasia. I have a 2024 license, and that's one of the last years where they were doing just a buy it as it is software. So today you have to do the subscription software, I think, if you want to go forwards, but this is just my one tool, my one set of files. Here's my timeline. It's pretty straightforward. I've got a little bit of an extras track here that holds places. I leave a screen recording if we're going to do that. But the only thing I've really skipped here in my recording and editing process is downloading the file. So you'll notice I've got 219 in there from last week's episode, and I've got 220 here ready to go for this week's episode. So I've just got to start switching content out. Now, get this going here. Missed. It's really easy with Camtasia just to drag over existing items. Ripple replace, that's going to give me the existing file settings and fades and things like that. I'll come in off the intro here, so I see I've got a little bit going on of us just chatting before Josh says hello. So I'll grab these files, pull them right up tight to Josh's hello. Match everybody up. All right, so I've got him coming in. Sometimes I got to listen through and identify where the social goes, right? So we move the social around depending on where we say it. I'll do that after the fact, but that's an easy one, just drag and drop. Now here at the bottom end of the episode, I've got to do a similar thing. I got to come into the end and find exactly where we finished things out. So I'll sync up the files to be the same, pull in my fade right on the last note, cheers, we say. And now I've got to pull out my media a little bit. So I pull these guys down to the end, match up my background file, boom, and then sync. So I got to pull these guys tight, and we've got an outro. Now, some folks get into a lot of extra editing. They will cut content, they will cut they'll add in visuals on screen. You're always welcome to do that. Of course, I do a lot more editing when I have a screen recording. I've got to break my files up, and I might move something in, like I'll show you here in the extras. I might have a 3-person guest background. I might have just this visual background in case it's screen recording. In those cases, what I do is I put Josh and myself up in the top, right? So you'll see us move up here if I'm doing a screen recording. There's a couple different things I'll move around, cut, splice. If somebody says something they shouldn't have, I think in this episode I actually do need to edit something out. You got to scan through, you trim out things, and you got to learn your tools, right? Camtasia, Adobe, all those different ones have different features for doing that. But really, I'm going to spend maybe another 5 minutes on this episode finding that cut I need to make, making sure everything's tight on the social media pops that are going to come on screen, and then I'll be done. You've watched me here in about 3.5 minutes put together the majority of the episode. Of course, you can spend a long time editing if you're trying to craft the story after the fact, right? But Josh and my approach to the podcast is that our conversation is the story. And so if you want that entire conversation with that entire story, we leave it there raw for you. That's okay. If you are someone who's taking the time to edit your story to make sure that it's exactly what you want it to be from a scripted standpoint, or even if it's conversational, but hey, you go off topic, you want to cut those off topics, or you want to pull those off topics into separate things, right? Sometimes it's good. Remember that with podcasting. Grab those off-topic conversations and make them a social media post. Make them a secondary complementary tool for your podcast and for your brand. But I understand sometimes those little rabbit trails are not a part of the main episode. So in under 5 minutes, here's how I edit the HiTech Podcast. I hope this is interesting. I hope it's useful. If you've got questions about how we do it or why I do it this way, feel free to reach out. And of course, this content on screen, what we've recorded of each other is happening in squadcast.fm. Then I download and come into here to do all my editing. So great opportunities ahead of you. Reach out if you got questions. HiTech Podcast is something that we enjoy making as a hobby. I hope you enjoy those episodes and what's possible for your sake using tech in your day-to-day life to be more productive, be more efficient, optimize, etc. This is Will. Thanks. Have a great day.